The Supreme Court ruling was a tremendous victory for our country. We have to be tough, and we have to be safe, and we have to be secure.
This is a moral moment for our nation. We're a president who openly wants to put a religious test on citizenship.
This is not a religious ban. You're picking out countries with high threat levels, with a poor vetting process, so it makes sense, and I think this ruling makes us safer.
Well, today the Supreme Court handing President Trump and his administration a big win, upholding travel ban 3.0, 5-4 decision. The majority, you see the justices voting in the majority there, and the dissenting, the opinion on the majority saying, quote, the proclamation is squarely within the scope of presidential authority under federal law. Indeed, neither dissent even attempts any serious argument to the contrary. The dissent, written by Justice Sotomayor, says, quote, this repackaging does little to cleanse presidential proclamation number 9645 of the appearance of discrimination that the president's words have created. Based on the evidence in the record, a reasonable observer would conclude that the proclamation was motivated by anti-Muslim animus. With that, let's bring in our panel. Byron York, chief political correspondent of the Washington Examiner, Molly Hemingway, senior editor at the Federalist, and Charles Lane, opinion writer for the Washington Post. Okay, Byron, significant ruling today?
It was. This was all we were talking about in the first few months of the Trump administration, and it should have been a slam dunk for the White House. And the fact that it was not is really amazing. John Roberts is correct. It was clearly within the scope of the president's constitutional powers. And the biggest argument against it was that even though it was a legitimate presidential power, that this president, Donald Trump, had exercised it with impure motive. And you had a situation in which an executive order, word for word, if signed by another president, would have been constitutional. And yet, since it was signed by Donald Trump with his history of anti-Muslim statements, it was therefore unconstitutional. That would have been a crazy legal area to go into in the court. It's a relief, really, that the court did not do that.
Molly.
And Chief Justice Roberts specifically addressed the issue of whether it was a religious test or not, pointing out that it covered only 8% of the world's Muslims, that it was using a list that had been developed by a previous administration, the Obama administration.
Let's put up the map while she's talking there.
And that it also included North Korea and Venezuela, so that it was hard to argue that this was, even though this is what the conversation had been in the media, that this was a Muslim ban, and even Donald Trump referred to it as that. It really is an important decision dealing with whether the executive has the authority to make decisions about national security related to immigration. And it's important also to consider how the Obama administration fared with the Supreme Court when it tested executive authority. It repeatedly was turned away by the court, sometimes by 9-0 decisions. So this is something that I think the Trump administration can legitimately be pleased with on the question of executive authority.
Interesting reaction from all over Capitol Hill and elsewhere. Here's one commentator on another channel with an interesting analogy.
What Osama bin Laden hoped to provoke was a war of civilization, a war between the West and 1 billion Muslims. And so what Donald Trump and this Muslim ban signal to the world is that Muslims are not welcome here. That this is, whether the conservative justices say that in fact this is about executive power, the president's clear intent was to impose a religious test. And that is as fundamentally un-American as anything that he's done over the course of this presidency.
Now, what about the majority opinion that was looking at the words on the paper there?
Well, you know, I would like to just react to that in tandem with reacting to Byron. Byron's absolutely right. If you just took the, let's say, the 3.0 version of this, not the first two, which were quite different, the biggest problem was the problem the president created for himself through all this extravagant and hostile rhetoric toward Muslims. George W. Bush, of course, who was president right after 9/11, went out of his way to signal that the United States did not have a quarrel with all Muslims, just the Islamist terrorists. And so I think that commentator you just put up there has a point that the atmospherics around this were terrible. One of the lessons of this decision, though, is not everything that has terrible atmospherics that's perhaps even stupid and offensive is unconstitutional. or even in this case, because there was a statutory argument against it, against the statutes either. I don't consider this so much a victory or even a vindication, which is the president's other word for this. I think what he got from the Supreme Court today was a rather a grudging almost acknowledgement that, okay, you can do this if you insist. There's no rhetoric in that any of the majority or concurring opinions saying, yeah, this was absolutely necessary, et cetera. It was like, well, you know, we can't stop you. We have no basis to stop you, so you can go ahead.
But at its heart, Molly, was an increase in this 3.0 version of the stipulations to get in, what these countries were doing to vet the people who were actually getting to the U.S. Chad was on the list, but then taken off because they met the stipulations.
Right, so it's hard to argue that it was some arbitrary list. And in fact, I think the first version of the ban actually would have held up under the decision-making that the court had today. Another issue where atmospherics was bad, though, is that you had a district court doing an injunction against a national ruling. And this is a trend that we're seeing a lot, particularly during the Trump administration, where district courts are thwarting national issues. And Clarence Thomas specifically said in his concurring opinion that this is something that might have to be taken up soon to discuss the legality of it. The fact that this was a 5-4 decision is also significant because it means that we're getting very narrow decisions based on, on highly political cases. It is a tremendous argument in favor of those people who did vote for Donald Trump, that they were able to get a 5-4 decision on this, and also the decision that forbids the state of California from forcing pro-life groups to advocate for abortion. But the fact that they're 5-4 decisions means that we're going to see this court continue to be a very political issue.
It shows also how important being able to have a nominee that becomes a Supreme Court justice is in this political world that we live.
If Donald Trump ever says anything bad about Mitch McConnell again, he shouldn't. He will, I'm sure, but he shouldn't. But look at some of the precedents that could have happened if this had gone the other way. The shackles that could have been put on a future president's ability to act in national security instances, and also it seemed to want to create some of the opponents of the ban with foreign nationals physically outside the United States, seem to create some sort of constitutional right of entry into the United States. And that would have been a terrible precedent.
Our late friend Charles Krauthammer weighed in on this last year.
I'm not against tightening the vetting. We should. But I think what we're seeing is the kind of kabuki that we do as a way to make ourselves think that we are safer from terrorism. There are a lot of sources of terrorism. Of the whole list, probably at the bottom, is the idea of infiltration from these states. These are 7 states in 15 years since 9/11. There hasn't been a single murder of an American by a national of these countries.
Chuck.
Well, that's another good point, is that quite a few of the recent lone wolf attacks have taken place by people who were either born in the United States or who were here on green cards, and the relationship between terrorism in these particular countries, though not completely disjointed, is a little tenuous. It's just that I think what the court was wrestling with, particularly Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Kennedy, do we take this power away from all future presidents because we're so uncertain about the trustworthiness of the current one? And I think they felt we're going to have to swallow this exercise of the power in the case of a very, very inflammatory president, because it could be used legitimately when the presidency is occupied by a different person later on.
Look at the circuit courts that were willing to do that. Not just the Ninth Circuit, the Fourth Circuit, all the judges short of the Supreme Court, big majorities were willing to do that with the president.
And some of them will be changed because as the judges get through the process up on Capitol Hill, including the Ninth Circuit.